I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to welcome board members and guests to our February 7, 2022 GLUA special meeting. Roll call, please.
Chairman Dave Udi.
Here.
Eric Carlson.
Here.
David Hall.
Here.
Jerry McKenna.
Here.
Tom Metcalf. Absent. Bill Lamb.
Here.
Lisa Togetsky. Here.
I'll now entertain a motion that to approve the meeting agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support? Support. Motion's been made and supported to approve the meeting agenda as presented. Is there any further board discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 10th, 2022 as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support? Support. Motion's been made and supported to approve the January 10th, 2022 GLUA special meeting. Is there any further board discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Let's see, attending the meeting this morning, we have Gary Bartow from Fleece and Vanderbrink and Ian Neerkum from Fleece. As Scott is not online today, I understand. Okay. And
I'm here this morning, Dave.
oh, I'm sorry, Scott, I didn't see you. I don't want to exclude you, buddy. Okay. And so moving on to old business. Government funding updates. We've had 2 meetings with our U.S. senators, representatives in Garish Township. Representative from Gary Peters' office was in the township last Thursday. We afforded the representative a tour of both Garish and Lyon Township. We 2 of our board members drove her around the lake, so she could see the affected areas and the areas proposed for the sewer district itself. We also had a representative from Senator Debbie Stabenow's office in 2 weeks. It was about a month ago now. So we're working with both of our U.S. senators. Both of our U.S. congressmen have been involved in our discussions regarding this project. We're also working with 2 lobbying groups down in Lansing that are working on behalf of the GLUA seeking grant funding. And that's pretty much what we're trying to do now. We're trying to identify of the billions of dollars that's come into Michigan for sewer and water. We're trying to make as many contacts as we can to obtain as many grant dollars as we can that will knock the individual assessments down, and that's what we're doing. That's consuming all of our time now at this time. Is there any addition to what I just shared with board members? Dave?
Yes, I'd like to add that we met with Dare Rendon, our U.S. rep, who endorses the sewer and is very excited to help us. And also Kurt Vanderwall, our state senator, met with him. And all of these folks are very excited about the sewer. They understand the need for the sewer. There are other lakes in our same situation, so they all get it and they all want to help. So that's very encouraging.
Okay.
And just to add on top of that, I think that they're probably working through the Senate Bill 588 on the appropriations, which has been passed by the Michigan Senate and is now into the Michigan House, waiting to be voted on.
All right. Anything else from the board? No? Moving on to new business, I want to go out of order a little bit here. Future GLUA meetings, board meetings. I'm looking at Monday, March the 7th. at 9 a.m. here in Garrish Township. Another item that we have to, that we need to address is the expiring commission, board commission terms for both Garrish and Lyon Township. We have to review whose term is expected to expire. And I'll be calling each one of the board members whose term is to expire and ask them if they would like to continue on as a board member as well. If someone says that due to their schedule or whatever, or should decline, then the townships will address that, and we'll bring forth some nominees to the townships themselves.
So we need to make a motion to set the next board meeting, that is March 7th.
Yes.
That works for everybody?
Yeah. That good? Okay. Okay, so that takes care of that item. We have a guest speaker this.
We need to make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion that the Garrish Line Utility Authority set the next special meeting dates as March 7th, 2022, here at Garrish Township
Okay.
at 9 a.m.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion in support for the next special GLUA meeting be March 7th, Monday, March 7th at 9 a.m. at Garrish Township. Is there any further board discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, the motion carries. Moving on, we have a guest speaker this morning. He is Scott Monroe, and he is from the Berry County Sewer and Water Authority down near Kalamazoo, Michigan. And Scott has been very kind to drive up here this morning in the freezing rain from the Kalamazoo area to talk about the sewer system that services his area. And rather than me make a mistake and tell how many lakes he services or how many residents he serves, I'll turn the floor over to Scott. So Scott, if you would come up here and don't worry, our meeting is being filmed.
That's all right. Okay. Well, good morning. My name is Scott Monroe. I'm with the Southwest Berry County Sewer Authority in Delton, which we're just a touch north of Kalamazoo. I've been with the authority for 28 years. I worked for an engineering firm prior to on that particular project, and it happened to be my hometown. So when the engineering company pulled out, I threw my hat in the ring, and I've been there ever since. So we have roughly 2,400 customers, give or take. So we're not quite nearly as big as this projected project, but we have around 10 lakes that are serviced or part serviced. We have step systems, we have grinders, and we have a little bit of gravity. I've been keeping track for several years of our call outs and our complaints and repairs and what have you. And the step system is a really good sound system. I'm not a big fan of the grinders. I've been a hands-on general manager from day one. Gravity's a great tool if you can use it in certain situations. It's terribly expensive. If you're in the water table, makes it very hard to dig deep enough for gravity and put lift stations in. The step system is roughly 1,000-gallon septic tank. Inlet 4-inch gravity, outlet 1.5 inch pressure. There's a vault on the discharge side. It's about an 18-inch diameter. Basically looks like a screen door wrapped in a circle, or there's bio tubes, which are a bunch of smaller tubes that are perforated that the water goes through. The pump that we use is a 120 volt half horse submersible well pump, just like you have in drinking water applications. Do you guys have city water here, or?
No.
Okay, so on-site wells. That was kind of our problem too. Where we live, we have numerous lakes. They're obviously not as big as your lake, but we have multiple. Everywhere we go, there's a lake. And our problem is we were contaminating the lakes, high weed rate, poor water. And it was kind of a dogfight years ago for us to get a system put in. A wise man once said, which is my father that was in the industry before me, and he stood up at our township. I live on one of the lakes that are serviced. And so I decided not to be the employee, I was the homeowner at the meeting. My father stood up and said, everybody has on-site water wells along with their sewer. And he said, it's jokingly, but it's true. He said, you know what's worse than drinking what you're flushing is drinking what your neighbor flushed. So everybody kind of got a chuckle out of it, but it made good sense because I've never been around Higgins Lake, but a lot of our lake communities, every 100 feet or so a lot, 60 feet, some are 50, some are double lots, but they're right on top of each other all the way around the lake. And we also noticed that just because you push a little shiny handle on the side and the water goes away, well, I don't have a problem. Well, just because it doesn't bubble out of the ground doesn't mean people have a problem. I'm not saying everybody has a problem that lives on a lake, but when you have a great big body of water, that water, it's leaching to that water. So if you live anywhere significantly close, you are impacting that lake to a certain degree. Our costs have just went up. We hadn't had a raise in 15 years, and it went from $34.50 a month to $40 a month. And we had a dozen phone calls, and I bet you 10 out of those phone calls were just making sure the ACH program was set up properly. I had one letter where somebody had complained where they were out of the loop that the raise came in effect. We had them stamped on the bills many months in advance, just nobody reads it, they just look at it and pay their bill and so on and so forth. But longer we had wait to get other people online, the prices had went up a little bit. That's just the way it is with everything. We started off with 4 founding lakes, and now we're up to 10. We have realistically, probably 2 or 3 more to come on in the future. Our system, maintenance-wise, we have about I think there's 9 or 10 of us total. We have a couple office personnel, and the rest are maintenance gentlemen, field techs. We try to pump a tank on an 8 to 10 year basis. Also, in the boxes, they have hour meters, so we read those. So if somebody vacations, a couple that don't come very often, and the 8 to 10 years comes up, and they have very minute hours, we don't waste the time and energy to go ahead and pump those tanks if they're not needed. When we do pump a tank, we pull the vault out and exchange it. We take the pump motor apart from the impellers, put a new impeller stack on that we've rebuilt, test the floats, put everything back, and record the hours and what we had did to the unit. And then I record that and have that for documentation. So somebody calls and says, nobody's ever pumped our tank, and I say, well, 94 you were pumped, in 2006, and so on and so forth, and give them the hours and the data that the service we had performed. When we pump a tank, get a call at 1 o'clock in the morning, what have you, on our system, it's part of that $40 a month. We pump the tanks, we take emergency call outs. I expect our employees to be there within a half hour, just so people aren't inconvenienced. We don't ever have to go into anybody's house. All they have to do is call us and push the button on the side of the box to silence it so it doesn't drive anybody nuts, and call us and we come running. I don't know, I guess with the grinder systems, you guys are looking at multiple systems or whatnot, they're harder to work on, troubleshooting's a pain in the hind end. The equipment over time always changes. One thing I really, I don't like change. If something's not broke, I don't like fixing it. And since 94, 93, when we started having our units arrive, everything to this day I purchase is compatible with those units. Grinders, we went away from those completely. We had one lake that had started their own system, and they didn't have a treatment facility, so they asked if they could come on to ours. We said, this is what we have engineered. And at that time, my boss, hindsight being 2020, should have told them no, take the step system and be unified, but instead they had it mostly engineered, so they went with that. It was more expensive, it's more costly to maintain. And I've had several employees over the years, and not one of them like to hear that they have to go out to Wall Lake where the grinders are. So our step system's very simple, couple screws, the lid comes off. Typically, we only allow the tanks to be 1 to 2 feet under grade. That way, one man can service the unit without having to hang half their body down into a tank to work on said unit. Usually half hour, 45 minutes is a duration of a call out. Or we have to change a float or set of impellers or change out the vault. The floats are set up typically every 90 to 100 gallons a homeowner uses. Pump kicks on and it pumps out. Our lids are fiberglass with about 1 inch or so of insulation on them. Once it comes out of the tank, which is also another 18 to 20 inches down is the invert leaving the tank, we 90 down to 5.5 feet deep or 5 feet deep, and 90 again, and go out with tracer wire and 1.5 inches pressurized, either PVC or polyethylene pipe out towards the sewer stub at the main. We run a couple. When we do a live tap, we drill through a ball valve, pull it back, shut it off, take everything off, we put a check valve right away. Then we come either across the street, or if it's on the same side, we put another set of ball valves and check valves. That way, when the contractor digs it up, if they ever have anything where they get a little overzealous with the backhoe, they snap it off, there's still one check valve that is holding back the line. And then inside the tank, it necks down to a 1-inch pipe, and it's a flexible pipe that comes up and goes down into the pump. The pump has a check valve on it, and there's also a ball valve inside the tank to shut off to remove everything. So there's several redundancies for the main not to come back towards a tank. I'm trying to think of anything else. I don't know if you'd like to, after your meeting, to have a Q&A of people, or they can shoot now, or?
Well, why don't we do it now while you're there? Anyone in the audience have a question?
Hi, Paul Bertrand here. Thank you for what you do. I used to work for the Holton Lake Sewer Authority, and I worked for the Progressive Engineering when they put it in, and that's a gravity system. Between gravity, grinder, and just step flow, which one of those three is the least likely to cause maintenance problems?
Well,
And I don't mean to put you on the spot. Just
no.
Quick ones over.
Well, I have it broke down from lake to lake. Hands down, the grinder gives us the most call-outs per residential equivalent unit, REU.
Okay, which is least likely?
The gravity, where we're at in town, we have a lift station there and we have 100 customers, so it's kind of hard to tell, but the topography was right, so we could get it done, and we didn't have a whole lot of water table. But the rest of that, we also had a stead system, which is basically a septic tank. 4-inch comes in, 2-inch goes out, gravity. and those we've tried to convert over to putting a pump in because they gave us issues. So our step system, like I said, we have around 2,400 homes, and we had about roughly 300 call-outs for the year. And then about 25% of those call-outs were homeowners' issue. Somebody flushed G.I. Joe with Kung Fu grip in the 4-inch. You know, they got a little overzealous with handy wipes or diapers because they say they're flushable. Doesn't mean they should go there. Yeah, sometimes people, they have a handyman come in, do some work, and they turn the power off. System doesn't run without power. So they say, hey, we're gurgling a little bit. We go out there and say, well, we don't have any power, turn your breaker on, and we're off and running. So,
Okay, I thank you for explaining it. To me, the gravity is by far less maintenance.
and most expensive is the we found.
Absolutely, and that's why there's less maintenance for almost 50 years. How deep is the deepest, or big and deep are the lake? What's the biggest and deepest lake in this system? Just guess.
We have a small lake that's about 100 feet deep, and then most of the lakes go anywhere from 40 to 60 feet deep.
Okay, and how many of the residents are permanent residents or trunk slammers weekend?
It's about a 60-40, maybe 60 full-time, 40%.
Okay.
Weekenders, out-of-staters, that kind of stuff.
Do you have more problems with the impellers for the trunk slammers who are not there firing them off regularly over the years? So the change rate might be 6 years for something where people are coming and going. Did you say 10 years before you pull them off?
8 to 10 years is the average. We have 10 lakes, so we're usually shy of 10 years. We do a lake a year and then some, because some of the lakes are smaller, so we go through there. But no, matter of fact, they sit there happy as a clam, whether they're being used daily or monthly or quarterly. We really haven't had any correlation with non-use being an issue.
With the impellers?
With the system in general. I mean, we haven't had anything that says, okay, these 40% of people we have to service more because they're not there often. We haven't had that.
Okay. All right, thanks. I'll let somebody else know.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Dave Kniffik, I've been in the plumbing industry for over 35 years, and inspect, engineered, not an engineer, but I have done some engineering on the side, along with, dealing with failures, et cetera. So, not one question, I got several questions. What's the elevation of your step system? How far up are they doing that? I'm curious on the static head pressure that you guys.
Well, the step system will pump 7 to 10 gallons a minute at 100 psi, which there's 0.433 psi in every foot, so there's 2.31 feet in every psi. So at 100 psi, we have about 80 miles of trunkage, and our farthest lake out is one of our biggest. We have no lift stations, no nothing, and they pump around between 60 and maybe 70 psi. So if you do the math on that, that would tell you what your elevation.
60 psi is basically what a household faucet gives when you turn your water on during those.
Yeah.
The question I have is dealing with the smaller laterals that you have going up. You've indicated you use 1.5 inch pipe coming from your tank.
Correct.
Into your branch or main.
Mm-hmm.
What's the length of that, and what's the maximum elevation of that before you get to that main?
Well, the mains are roughly 5 feet deep as well. And it's not so much the elevation from the house to the main, it's the highest point of the trunkage.
Correct.
So the lake I'm talking about on Pine Lake Road, it has a very high hill just before it comes into town, and that's what brings back to the lowest spot on the lake. It has to overcome that hill 6 miles away. So obviously the lower you are, you're at your 60 or 70 psi. the higher people are, they might be at 30 or 40 PSI. And some are obviously 10 or 12 PSI or less, where they're higher up on a hill.
Correct. The maximum is the main concern. The other thing you indicated is that you come off the tank at about 18 inches below the height of the tank?
Yes, and the tank sits a foot or two below grade. So right off the get-go, you're gonna be, say, a foot or 2 feet plus another 18 inches.
Right.
And then once it comes out, we go down to 5 feet to 5.5 feet, and then 90 and exit the lawn.
Now, the climate between your township and Garrish and Lyon Township is completely different, okay? Our temperatures drop way below what you do. Our frost line's much lower than that. My concern is the freezing of the 1.5-inch pipe. I'm hoping Garrish was gonna at least do a 2-inch. Smaller the diameter of pipe, faster it freezes.
Well, we,
So that's where my concern is. Have you had any problems with freezes on yours? Now, keep in mind, you're much warmer than we are up here.
well, we also get much less snow than you do, which is a huge insulator.
Yeah,
So, and I'll tell you, out in the roads, at where we're from, you get 3 foot, 4 foot of frost pounded into the roads, and that's where our lines are as well. And we start out from our 1.5-inch lines to 3 inches. One lake actually has 2-inch main, which I didn't care for, but that was the way it was engineered. But they come out at 3-inch, then the 3 goes to 4, the 4 goes to 6, the 6 goes to 12, so on and so forth. The temperatures, we've had one grinder freeze where a gentleman had built a new home and he dug out 3 feet in his driveway, and he created his own issue. So until spring, he had a tough way of going. We had to run around. It was frozen over 3 feet deep in his driveway there. The step systems, even in the parking lots, we have to have, obviously, if you put a H20 tank or a septic tank in a parking lot or driveway, we have concrete risers and steel manhole covers. So we always put a piece of 2-inch styrofoam right on top of the piping, because obviously there's no styrofoam on the steel manhole. And we haven't had any freezing of discharge pipes. And we've had some fairly large, like gas stations and what have you, that have 8 inches of concrete and they're plowed and drove on, and we just haven't had anything that freezes.
Right. How many step systems do you have on the system? You talk about 2,400
Right.
customers, but
There's-
you're not saying how many step systems.
Well, the step systems are, I think Wall Lake has 260 to 280 grinders. We have 100 customers, I think, maybe on Gravity, and the rest is step systems. So, I don't know, 2,100, give or take.
Okay, okay. You know, the conductivity of the soil is different here than what you have there too. So that's the other thing that we have to deal with, you know, the depth of our frost lines. So, you know, those are a concern of mine, okay? Because we get down here and sometimes we do not have snow. In fact, I think it was 2019, we did not have snow.
We didn't have any in 95. We had nothing. It was zero. It was zero for a month. And how I remember this, I'm a big
Zero
snowmobiler,
is a heat wave to us.
you know.
Okay, we get down -21 to -39 was actually a record in Ross County. -21 is a common. And that's where the issue is. Because when you freeze it, like you said, that gentleman with the driveway had to wait until spring before he could use it again.
Well, we
That's what I'm trying to
chiseled and
point
we put,
across.
okay, well, if that's the case, does everybody's water wells freeze?
Their water wells aren't 18 inches underground.
It's
by the way, the lines that come
it's
up-
not 18 inches underground. It's
You're coming
off,
off the
coming
tank.
off the top of the tank.
Right.
Then you got a 1 or 2 foot riser, so if somebody's worried about it, that gives them 3.5 feet, and right this far outside the tank, it 90s down. We were worried about that at the beginning, and we started putting styrofoam insulation, 2-inch styrofoam insulation on top of that, and every one we did that, it broke from the pressure pushing down. So if anybody's ever worried about that, and they want to do something, do not use the pink stuff. Use insulation, fiberglass, and wrap it
No.
if anybody's upset about that. But
That one I'd like to comment about, because as soon as moisture gets in it, you lose your insulation background.
yeah, well, you
So you have
can't.
to have a total watertight insulation going around.
So anyway, we found in a quick hurry that if people were worried about the freezing, which we've never had in 28 years, but anytime we used the styrofoam insulation, it worked as like a sheet of 4x8 plywood pushing down instead of dirt settling around the pipe. So I highly recommend not doing something like that.
And we also have problems, as you say, with water. You know, the island's only 3 feet above the water table.
Right. And then you probably already realize this, being a plumber, that if you put pressure line or any kind of line in the water table, it'll never freeze because the water never freezes in the water table.
But the problem is your tank's higher up, you have to do a elevated tank because of
We've put tanks right in the water table.
to a point you can, okay? Because you will start having some difficulties where they will want to float because of the displacement.
Well, the tanks we put in are 15,000 pounds. We have a couple contractors that have boxes they sit in and they dig down, push the boxes down, dig out that, put the tank in there when they dewater. And they've ran ballast across the top of the tanks, and some of them have not, and we've never had a tank pop even when we've emptied them.
Right, so when you do that, you bring it up where your line's coming off that tank at 18 inches, you're no longer 36 inches down.
Well, you still have to be a minimal foot of grade on that tank. You don't put the tank at grade, so that's incorrect.
Okay.
You would have a minimal 2 foot plus 18 inches. And if you're in a water table of 3 feet, well then even your discharge pipe is almost at the water level at that point in time. So there's, once again, then you're back to the moot point of not being able to freeze.
Well, no, there's not a viewpoint of the system not freezing. But I appreciate that, that's good clarification for displacement factor. And kind of slow.
Anything else?
No,
Yes.
Is the main here would be a 3-inch?
Well, I don't
It
know,
hasn't been anywhere yet.
I don't know what,
Huh?
you know,
So it hasn't been
our,
anywhere yet.
our mains start off very small and go large, obviously. That way, when the pumps kick on, it kind of scours the pipe, helps keep it clean, because it pumps just the gray water, but there's always suspended solids. So you don't want 10 people on a 12-inch main going out somewhere. The water would be stagnant, would sit there forever. So the engineers will accordingly build it to flow or predicted flow or how many houses, that kind of thing.
So are there pumps in the main into the water treatment plant, or it's purely for my half horsepower?
When you flush and your pump kicks on, it takes 100 gallons and pushes in the line. Same with his house, her house, so on and so forth. Each house pushing together, it keeps it basically.
So how catastrophic would a backflow preventer be to the resident? Pretty bad, I would think.
Oh,
How catastrophic would a backflow preventer be if it fails?
well, that's what I was saying earlier.
It'd be horrible, right?
Well,
It would fill the house.
yes, but that's why we have, when we put the line in, we pressurize. This is how we pressurize the main, and then we come back with the main pressurized with water, and we live tap it. which means I get down, I put a machine on there,
Yeah,
and a valve.
understand.
I drill through that, turn it off, I put a check valve on right there. I turn that on, the check valve's hold. I go to the property line, I put a ball valve and a check valve there and record where that's at. Some people have standpipes where they can shut them on and off. We bury ours. So that's 2 check valves. And then as you go into the tank, you come up, it goes from 1.5 inches to 1 inch, rises up, has a rubber flex pipe, comes back down, and there's a shut-off valve there, and then on the pump itself is a brass check valve. So in our system, we have 3 check valves before it comes into the tank. So it would be mighty hard to have all 3 check valves fail and have something come back.
Well, in due time, everything fails, so you don't know you have a problem until that third one fails. So one, no,
Well,
one
we
fails, two
do,
fails, you
because-
still don't know.
Well,
As soon as 3 fails, now you know.
well, we,
Is there a way that the resident can block that system off himself? So if he doesn't have a problem, he's not calling you and waiting for the hour or whatever. He can immediately go turn the system off.
we don't have anything for homeowners to touch, but we do test that when we go and pull our basket, I call it vault, or we call it basket, but it's a vault and the pump and all the floats. We shut the valve off to unhook a union to pull the pump out. Well, we always turn that on and see if it drizzles out or if it sprays out. If it sprays out, then they go right on the list, we dig it up, find out what the problem is, if the rock's in the check valve, if the flapper's gone, what have you, and we would replace it. We probably had a handful of that, and those were on the initial system where we only had 1 check valve on the initial 3 lakes. Since then, we have double check valve at the street and the main and in the tank, so we've done one better, but I think we probably had 5 or 6 maybe over the years that we've dug up and found a rock or something in the check valve because it was a rubber swing. And now what we do, protocols, we actually turn them upside down, so there's never can be a small rock to block it. And that's really helped us out.
So there's a flex line you said in there, and we're putting 100 PSI through a flex line?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's no different than hydraulics.
And it's flexed just so the tank can...
No,
move
it
the shift, or-
it just comes inside, so it comes up over the vault and back onto the pump. But, it's really thick. We order the red, heavy, thick hoses. We've never had one break. Originally, they came with kind of a wider ribbed hose, and they would start, you could see them when they'd start swelling or fatigue. So we went away with those and just purchased the heavier duty ones, and never replaced one yet. And those take, ungodly amount of pressure. These things only pump up maximum 100 PSI. So the PVC pipe is probably rated for 300, 350. The polyethylene is probably even more, and then
And
those,
your flex line's a smooth surface?
yes,
Okay, not corrugated, it's smooth.
no, it's,
Okay, so the tank is roughly 1,000 gallons typically.
it is.
It's got a float, so it's gonna pump 100 gallons at a time. Where's that float set? Is it set to the tank's half full and it starts pumping? Or it's almost full and it starts pumping? And I'm asking this because if there's a power failure,
Right.
I have no system anymore. So how much time do I have before the power's gotta come back on?
Well,
Yeah.
that's.
Storage.
Well, we've had a lot of questions regarding that, and that's a good point. The step system, obviously, we were talking the 12 inches discharge off the tank. The inlet is very close to that, and our floats are below that. So when the pump kicks on, you still have a couple few inches, 3-4 inches maybe even, below the inlet. So you have capacity up to, I would think, 300 gallons or so. We say REUs, residential cooling unit, is 200 gallons a day, and probably nobody really meets that 200, unless people are doing laundry and what have you. The other saving faith is usually if somebody has a generator, that's a Generac that probably runs the whole house, including the well. If you're out for a long period of time, you got 200-300 gallons, chances are you're bucketing the water, if that's the case, so you're really not doing laundry, your water softener's not running, you're not in there taking showers for 20 minutes out of whack. So the grinders, we had 15, 20 gallons at best capacity, or our step systems, we were at least 300 gallons before it started even touching the 4-inch.
Okay, well, we just had a simple thing, it was a storm, tree fell, took the line down, so we were out for days. So with my family, we're using the water, and you have no power. That's a big concern, I think.
Yeah,
If the power goes out.
right. But you'd be surprised how little water you usually use, especially when you don't have power. But we've been very
We don't have
fortunate.
grandkids.
Thank God, not yet.
So I'm taking a lot of time here, but, so, right now, it's at $30,000, at the estimate of $130 million and 4,300 customers. How much of that do you think is gonna get covered by these grants? I mean, how much is a homeowner gonna have to fork out for the assessment?
That's what we're trying to find out.
And it's not
So we
30,
don't, so we don't have an idea yet.
and it's not
We did.
$30,000, it was 22,000.
Well, in your write-up,
Or was it-
it's $130 million is the estimate, and it's 4,300. You'll do the math, it comes out 30,232 per resident.
Well, that's what we're trying to work with the legislature about, to give us a grant number.
Okay, and a lot of government projects never come in on budget. So 130 to me is probably gonna be light.
Well, you know, one of the reasons we did go with Fleece was their track record of not only bringing projects in on time, but bringing projects in under budget. That's one of the reasons that.
So if your system is up to code, you still have to connect up, you can't opt out. Would that be the way you guys would work this?
If the system goes, everyone will hook up, that's correct.
Yeah, so the fact that I put a brand new system in 2 years ago, I'm just out that money. Correct? Nobody can opt out.
Well, no, well, you still have to hook up, but you might get a discount because your tank, the health department knows what the size requirement and tank that we're supposed to be using. So if you were in that time frame, they could get money back off the project. Because the tank was already compatible with the ones that we were gonna be using.
Well, I'm sure my tank isn't exactly what he's talking about. I have no idea.
We ran into a few like that, but we have two, I think they're 20-inch diameter holes around in each end where we put our riser material. But I don't know what you have. I know we've done that with two houses at ours, and then even lakes that are nearby us that have not hooked. The health department gets with those people typically and says, you might want to, there's possibility for sewer hookup, find out what Southwest Berry County Sewer sells or has made for them, buy that, and then that would become a plug and play, obviously. But yes, after you've already spent your money, you'd be lucky, hopefully, to have something compatible with that. You have to reinvent the wheel again in your place, of course.
Tim, go ahead.
I want to get back to you.
Yes, sir.
If somebody wants to hook up to your system, is there a cost to that?
Yes.
They pay you to do it, or do they hire a contractor to
Well,
build and then tap your system?
each, like I said too, when we started this in '92, the price was X. By the time we got to 2002, it was X, and now at 222, the prices went up. So what we do is if you're at a house that was the initial system, then we still charge that amount. Connection fee. And then the cost of the equipment is what it is for anybody and everybody at this date and time. So they would pay a connection fee, they'd pay for the equipment and the tap. My responsibility is to give the homeowner a tap to their property line. Whether it's across the street, on the same side, what have you, we charge a lump sum of one price and we put it there. Then we have a contractor's list that the homeowner, we give it to the homeowner and they have the opportunity to call people on our list. They're insured, bonded, They've got the 411 on how to do stuff. We have an inspector that meets with them, and they come out, give you a bid, and then talk with me, and I make sure I go out and find out where they want to put the tank, make sure they're not off in left field, make sure it's not too close to the drinking water well, make sure it can gravity feed to it, so on and so forth. I always like to set these things up in the lower part of the lawn if you can, because if you do have a problem, you want it to come out the lid and have sanitary sewer overflow versus back into a house. But, you know, there's just a lot of different factors that you want to, that I'd like to go out and make sure, because that tank's sitting there forever, and we have to maintain it, so I want to make sure, one, we can get to it readily, and two, that it makes all the health department mandates.
Are you mandated to be part of the misting system?
We are.
So anybody that wants to do something to their
Yeah, anybody
house,
anybody in our area calls Mystic, we're part of the Mystic system. We go out and mark our electrical lines, our laterals, and the main.
And then I'm assuming that someone on your staff or you are certified, like through Eagle, to run
I am,
the
yes.
final system,
Yes.
do the reports and what's coming in. I
Yes.
had sort of well, it's on topic, I guess, because you have a mixed system, and I don't think we're gonna have any of that. What does your grinder pump, where does that material go? Does it just join in with the effluent and go to your place and you deal with it?
It does when it
gets
hits
wastewater treatment?
our town. The grinders, another side effect of having those are they only pump about 25 to 35 PSI, and they don't have enough oomph to get to our facility. Like I said, we have about 80 miles of trunkage. So we have a lift station that, at that lake, everything goes counterclockwise to that lift station, and that pumps into our, one of our main lines coming from the north. And then it comes in and hits a main feeder pipe, and then goes to the facility.
So you're not getting, like, our system would be pure effluent, you have some mix of partial solids?
Wastewater in general is 99.9% water anyway, as a whole as it comes in. So, yeah, you'll have higher ammonias, I think, obviously for being more discharged water than all solids.
And then when you're pumping down the solids, you're taking them to your wastewater treatment?
Yes, we have,
Anyways.
yeah, we have digesters, and we also have a receiving station where local haulers can come in and discharge at our treatment facility. And that's been a profitable thing to help keep our wages in check, and the power and everything. That's a nice little income on the side for the authority. And also it keeps the septic haulers from, you know.
Head for the woods.
Exactly. I mean, it'll keep most of the honest guys honest. You know, they come and we have a nice receiving station, and they can hook up and discharge, and we do the same with our septic. When we pump our tanks, we roughly pump 10 a day when we start pumping.
And I guess, just engineering, your effluent is treated somehow, and then what happens to the treated water?
We have a SBR, which is sequence batch reactor. So there's two basins working 180 degrees off of each other. So if one's settling, letting everything settle, the other one's agitating and mixing, and it's ran off of biological growth. There's bugs in there doing their thing. When it goes from react to settle to decant, the water comes out and goes out into, we have a 2 million gallon polishing pond. Now granted, we're half the size of what you guys are, I think, predicting. So we have a 2 million gallon pond. We get anywhere between 165,000 gallons a day to 300,000 gallons a day. So you guys might be at, you know, 500,000 gallons a day, give or take, maybe 600, I don't know. But, so it goes to this polishing pond, and from there we have valves, we have 9 irrigation work. We have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 6 rapid infiltration beds. And those rapid infiltration beds look like a football field full of sand with a berm around it. We discharge to that so many gallons per foot per hour, and it goes through the sand, then it goes through whatever the existing ground is, and either goes to water aquifer, or it vents to a body of water, or something along those lines. Each place is different, has different characteristics, so on and so forth. Eagle, gives you a pretty stringent permit. When we first started, our drinking water well was quite a ways away from us. And the nitrate, the legal limit for nitrate is 10 or below for drinking water. Ours was about 6.5. Our permit, when we first started out, was at 5 for total inorganic nitrogen, which is ammonia, nitrate, and nitrite. So if I'd have taken my drinking water, which is fine to drink, and put it on my filter bed, that was a violation. So our treatment facility works pretty good. It removes the contaminants that we need. We don't have a tin limit anymore, but the SBR works well. For about 3 months out of the year, we turn on some boilers and heat our basins to make sure that we stay above 10 degrees C for our microorganisms. And spring and fall, sometimes our levels go up a little bit because it's a beast, it's living. And spring and fall, we have to adjust the aeration and what have you to keep all the bugs happy and doing what they need to do. So it's a very small plant in comparison to, Kalamazoo or, we have one plant. And we have 10 days that come to that one treatment facility.
I have a question. I want to follow up what Tim was talking about, the hookups. How much do you charge for the hookups? What's your fees for somebody who doesn't have anything and they want to hook
Our
up?
straight connection fee is $6,500. That's a connection fee. For a majority of the properties. And then the aquarobic, not the aquarobic, but the Orenco system is around $3,100 to $3,200, so you can probably just say 32. And we do a $1,300 connection fee. So that's, give or take between $13,000 and $15,000. You got 65, 30, that's 9, so that's 10. So that's give or take about 11,000. And then a contractor to install it. And those vary from, if you put the tank, if the house is near a road, or if they have to run a quarter mile of piping, what have you, each sewer hookup is different. And I don't know how you guys, if that's all gonna be done lock, stock, and barrel. We've done it both ways. We've had a contractor come in and do the whole project and hook them up. And then we've also had the contractors come in and then let the homeowners pick who they wanted.
Do you have an idea of what the contractors charge?
Like I say, it varies. It can be from 25 to 4,000, 2,500 to 4,000. And I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know. Like I say, it depends on the difficulty, their water table, if it's a long run. But what's nice about that is our contractors list. We have several contractors on the list, and you call 2, 3, 4 of them, and you'll find one that, you find a little more beneficial or more cost effective or what have you.
That money, the homeowner comes up with that money?
They pay that directly to the contractor.
So am I hearing this right? The 130 million for all the installation does not include?
I don't know what they're figuring. Ours, the 6,500 goes to the treatment facility for life of that residence flushing the toilet. The components in the yard are the 3,200, 3,100, what have you. The tap is us coming out and making it available. So the 6,500 is that portion of buying into the plant, keeping it. You bought into that plant, you reserve the right to have that forever and eternity. So if they're saying it was $22,000 or $30,000, I don't know if that's engineered as lock, stock, and barrel turnkey, or just the trunkage. That's something you guys are probably just starting to review.
Our program is a turnkey,
Okay, so,
and the homeowner will pay for electrical from his box to the control panel, and then the piping to the tank. But the authority will take care of
Okay.
the rest of it.
well, that saves a lot of what ifs, so, okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming out, and you're obviously a wealth of information. I have two questions.
Yes, sir.
When you originally put the system in, were homeowners allowed to opt out? And if people build a new house, are they allowed to opt out?
No and no.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's a wonder I didn't have bullet holes in my truck in '94. There was a gentleman just like this man that, unfortunately, our health department was not on the same page with the sewer authority at that particular time. And they knew the sewer was coming. And why, they didn't tell the gentleman that, but they went ahead and his sewer system failed. And so he had to buy a piece of property across the street from a neighbor. He had to have a pump-up system. It was a mound system, all of that. He had more into that than hooking up to us. And it was the very next year we broke ground down the street. So obviously, he's a little upset. And I was the first guy that he got to talk to. So luckily, cooler minds prevailed and he didn't shoot me. But I felt his pain because I understand. Matter of fact, where I live, I didn't have sewer to start off with. And I fortunately bought quite a bit of property on the lake. And I had a little trailer and I was building, so I had the health department come out, which I always worked hand in hand with. And I said to the sanitarian, I said, hey, John, what do you think? I can use my existing system for my new house? And he looked at it and he says, yep, for how many bedrooms I had, whatever, everything was fine. And he says, where are you putting your contingency system? And this is where it gets really sticky in our neck of the woods. I said, what do you mean contingency? He goes, well, when your system fails, which it's going to, where are you going to put it? I said, way over there. He goes, well, your well's right here. I said, yeah, but you told me I had to have a new one, because this was a hand-driven one. I got to have a new 4 or 5 inch. That's up there. He said, right, but this still goes down to the groundwater and so on and so forth. And he goes, you know the routine. I'm like, yeah, it needs to be capped and you put bentonite in it and what have you. So I said, well, I'll put it a little further down. He said, your neighbor's well's right there. Oh, I said, well, I'll put it over there. That's too close to the lake. I'll move it up. That's too close to the well. He said, you own it across the street, don't you? He said, well, that doesn't have nothing to do with this. And my property is 140 or 240 feet deep by 180. So I have 3 lake lots. It's a little over an acre, close to it. And I didn't have any place to put a new contingency system. And I said, come on, man. I said, I've got more property than anybody on the lake here. How do the next guys do it? They said, well, we're probably not going to be issuing any more on-site systems unless they buy across the street or whatever, because they started getting more and more stringent. So back in the early 90s, we weren't a fan favorite because we would cost quite a bit. Now people are saying, hey, can you run a lateral down our street because the health department wants me to put a $30,000 system in. And then I have to maintain it forever, being the homeowner. So we've done that. We've actually now, people have turned the corner and being more proactive to say, we need sewer, because the alternative is the health department either condemns us or makes us put in a ridiculously expensive system. So what our ordinance is, if it's residential, it's 350 feet from the main. And if it's rural or agriculture or something, it's like 200 or 250 feet. So if because we have 80 miles of trunkage, so if we're going out a road that has farmland and somebody's 250 feet off the road and they're in farm residential, we don't force them to hook. But if they were closer, we would. But if it's in the residential or lake residential or what have you, they would have to hook within 350 feet. So hopefully that explains that.
Just to follow up to what gives you the authority to prevent people from opting out?
Well, we have an ordinance, obviously, and it's in our township. We have 4 different townships that make up our sewer system. And initially, when this was obtained and performed, they had an ordinance built at that time to take care of what ifs and what have you, and that's just the ordinance that they've came up with. And there's some state legislation in there too of the health department. They have some of the rules that we have adopted as well. Yes, sir.
What's been your experience with the health department reaction to a test of a well where the nitrite, ammonia, total nitrogen was above the 10?
Well,
What have they done in your area?
this has since ceased because of political reasons, but we had a program called TOAST, and I don't know what TOAST exactly was, but it was time of sale, something or other. And what it was is, if I was buying a home from you, let's say it was on a land contract, you know, nothing needs to be looked at, yada yada. Well, this TOAST said, well, yes, it does need to be looked at, because if I'm buying this $100,000 home from you, and you're the only one that lives there, and I've got a slew of kids, I have 12 kids and a wife, and I buy it for $100,000, and it was listed, you know, or probably booked at $100,000, I'm at the top end of that. So I buy it, and a month later, the sewer system can't handle the pressure of my 12 kids and myself and the wife, and all of a sudden it's bubbling out of the ground. I don't have any means. You spend all my money to buy this place. I can't take a loan out against the house because it's at its max. I'm between a rock and a hard place. So that was a good tool for somebody, a third person coming and evaluate the water well, the sewer, so on and so forth, before purchasing, because then you know what you're buying. And if you have to put a sewer system in and you're close to, we have several that are out of district. We have trunkage, like I said, goes 80 miles. Well, in between point A and point B, there might be 20 houses that were never made to hook up. They weren't forced to hook up. They didn't live on the lake, and they had quite a bit of property order. But with that ordinance, our ordinance and the county ordinance, or health department, they may have to hook. So that's where the middleman says, you know, he gives a report to the health department, so on and so forth. So that plays into the effect of when people have to hook or not. So if our pipe goes by a subdivision or what have you, we might not force them to hook, or some of the people, but if they're within that district, when their system fails, then we would require them to hook.
I'm not sure I got the answer I'm looking for. If there's a test, by the health department.
That's, the health department rules whether you can drink it, whether you can't, what you do. I mean, we just supply sewer, and we don't test people's wells and whatever.
But what has been your experience with the health department when someone's property, because of the drinking water analysis, is overlooked? You have nothing to do with that?
I have nothing to do with that. I'm not privy to whether somebody's water well is in good shape or bad shape. We're just the mechanism to give sewer and maintain it for people that need it. Yes, sir.
Scott, thanks again for coming down with your experience and your knowledge. Earlier on, very early on in your talk, you spoke to residents that were in close proximity to the lakes had impact on water quality going in from being discharged from the septic. You have 2,400 customers, I guess, peppered over around 10 lakes. How far is your furthest customer from any one of those lakes?
The furthest customer?
From any one of those lakes, yeah.
Well, like I say, we have some that are on the trunk line, you know, we have a high density population of lakes, but in between some of those lakes was just farmland, you know, and some of those people are hooked. And like I say, we can reach out and touch somebody in those areas about 250 feet off the road. I don't know if that's what you're after.
So, all right, so that farm, how far is that farm?
Well, if it's, well, it depends what the ordinance is. If they're ag, it would be 250. If it was residential or rural residential or lake residential, we could reach out to 350 feet. That way, somebody can't get really creative just to try to get away from the sewer, and they're all in that district or in that area to hook. But, you know, that just happens to be our ordinance. That doesn't necessarily mean an ordinance that will be set here.
Sure, understood. But let me just reiterate. So the customer who's 350 feet away from the lake is your furthest customer from any of those lakes?
No, 350 feet away from our sewer line that goes down the road. Is
Oh,
like if
okay,
you
that's
have-
not my question. My question was, how far away from this lake, how far away from that lake is your furthest customer? How far,
How many miles?
how many miles or yards or feet or whatever?
I don't know. I can't give you a number, I guess.
How about, how far do you have to be away from the lake before you don't have to hook up?
That's a good question.
Well, if you're on the lake,
No, how far away can you then avoid hooking in?
it's not how close you are to the lake, it's how close you are to the available sewer line.
Really?
That's, you know, I mean, but if you're in a district, a said district, if they carve a district out, you could be 2 miles from the pipe and 50 feet from the lake, but if you're in that district, you're hooking up.
So how far from the pipe would you have to be and not hook up to the sewer?
Like I said, it depends, and at my place, it depends if you're agricultural. If you're agricultural, okay, let's say you got 200 acres there, and you're 250 feet off the road, you don't have to hook, because that's right at the line.
Residential?
If it's residential, it's 350 feet. So if you have 2 acres, and your house is 340 feet off the road, and you're near the residential lake area, where it's, how it's zoned, you would have to hook.
Okay, thank you.
I think what the question was trying to get at is when you have a lake and then you have homes away from the lake, we know your sewer line goes and you gotta hook up so many feet from your sewer line. But how far away the farthest house from the lake is hooked up?
No, Dave, sorry.
Isn't that what you're trying to say?
Well,
I'm trying to find out how far away you can be and avoid hooking up.
and that, like I
But
said,
Dave, yes,
And
that
the answer,
that was my
300 and some feet for them.
yeah,
from the
it
pipe.
depends on the zoning, really, yeah. And if you have an assessment district, doesn't matter how far you are, if you're in that assessment district, you're in. And obviously,
Okay.
there's protocols to dispute that at the time, I think. Yes, sir.
The additional, other than the obvious need to move sewage somewhere where you can process it and treat it and everything else, your district or your area with these 10 lakes, was it originally set up to do this because of the quality of the lakes deteriorating? Is that what drove it?
That was a major issue, that and the densely populated area.
So everybody was concerned about the quality of lakes. That's what I assume is driving what's going on here, other than the obvious need to.
Well, and also, it's the number of people that love the lake. You know, if you look at some, and I imagine it's the same here, in our lakes, in the 50s, it was a 800 square foot fishing shack that may or may not even had running water or a toilet. And then in the 70s, they added on hodgepodge, a couple different buildings, and had a sink to gut their fish and clean it, and then a toilet out back. And then by the 80s, they said, you know what, we love the lake, we want to live at the lake, and so they build a bigger house and so on. They just keep making it bigger and bigger, so on and so forth. So as longer time goes, more and more densely populated the lake's got to get, or
Yeah, I understand all that. I just was trying to understand what was driving. To me, it doesn't sound like the quality of the lakes was the main issue of where you're at.
yeah, it was, because the lakes have really turned around quite a bit, and there's.
So you're saying the quality of the water is.
That was the main driving force at the beginning, was,
And that's all documented, it's improved and all that.
oh yeah.
One of the concerns I have with this whole program here is it's known as a fact that 350 feet off the water is where your issue is. From 300 or 350, I think is what we're told, that's where the issue is. Now, I understand soil's different in different areas, and sand does permeate, will allow water to, or moisture to travel farther. We're 3/10 of a mile off the lake, our system works fine, and we have no issues, but we're being told that this is a quality of the water issue, or the quality of the lake, keep it, pay it forward, all that good stuff, we wanna have for our future with kids. I get all that, but if I'm 3/10 of a mile off the lake, as compared to the guy that's on the water, who's where the actual issue is, where there's not riparian buffers or whatever to filter the water and take care of it. It doesn't matter what you do with the sewer, if you can have all the people at the edge of the water, in order that 300 plus foot buffer area, fertilizing and doing everything else, you're gonna still introduce all the nitrogen, because it's not getting filtered the way it should be naturally by the natural vegetation or riparian buffers. So to me, it's a moot point. You're not addressing the real issue of where the quality of the lake is going down. You're just putting a Band-Aid on a problem because you want to fix something else. At least that's what it appears. And that's based on somewhat, I can't speak for another person, but a close family member of ours is a biologist for the government, and she's been doing it for 30 years. She looked at this and said, sounds like you got a big developer trying to come in to push all this on everybody instead of taking care of the individual's needs. It doesn't make any sense. And that's hers, 30 years of doing this for the government as a biologist. So anyway, that's, I don't understand why we're all up in arms about getting a sewer system. And the basis behind it is, I assume, the quality of the lake and the water, but we're not even addressing the main issue of the quality of the lake, which is the people that are on the farm of water, throwing the nitrogen, the fertilizer, and everything else, and there's no way to filter naturally the nitrogen out of the water because there is riparian buffers down there the way they should be.
I don't know what to say other than, we have, the lake I live on, we have several bodies of water coming into our lake, and they don't have a sewer system per se, and everybody's up in arms about that.
I don't think we have that problem.
Well, no, but my thing is everybody says, well, we shouldn't have our weed program and our sewer program then, and the long and short of that was, my comment was, if I don't mow my lawn, are you not gonna mow your lawn, because I didn't mow my lawn? I mean, you can only,
I don't want to get into all that.
I mean, you can look out just for yourself.
A big package getting pushed across that hasn't had the real bigger picture looked at completely, at least, as I get it. I worked for a township in Texas. They put in the grinders and the steps and the combination. They had nothing but problems with the whole system from the get-go. And from what I know of my friends that are still down there, they still have the same problems they had. And it's costing homeowners money. So I realize that's a different area, and a different soil, and different everything else in here. There's a lot of different factors, but a couple of the other things I think, maybe this is for the end of the show here, but There was a comment made a month or so ago about how they're presenting to the USDA, how this project encompasses and takes care of everybody around the lake. And that's part of the reason why they're confident they're gonna get the funding. I don't see how this encompasses and takes care of everybody around the lake at all. I don't think it does. There's a township right up the road that's opted out of this, Beaverton, they're partially on the water, the Beaver Township or whatever. I don't see how this encompasses the problem all the way around the lake, the whole package doesn't. You've got people, I've got a brother on the other side of the lake that's closer to the water than me, at water level, and he's outside of the line of this system. It doesn't make any damn sense. How could I be, I'm up on a hill 3/10 of a mile off the water, I have to get into this. And there's commercial properties over there that probably have more runoff and issues, and it drains right into the lake over there by Old Point Marina. I don't get how this system is fixing the problem that's being addressed, and I'm probably ignorant to a lot of things I'm addressing here. I haven't kept up with it at the level I should, but there are a lot of issues that
Thank you. Anybody else?
How far is your treatment plant away from your lakes? I know 10 lakes.
Crooked Lake's our closest, and we're probably, a mile and a half or so, approximately. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got a question dealing with your check valves. You're using flappers and not springing with balls, apparently. Are your check valves in the system?
We have swing checks, we have 2 swing checks on the line, and then we have a spring ball that's on the pump. It's a brass check valve.
Okay, okay. So, dealing with the situation, your design is totally different than what Higgins Lake's design would be. I completely understand that. The question I've got is dealing with those check valves. If there's a failure at the bottom of a branch, okay, let's say there's 9 houses, 10 houses on it, and there's a failure, and the most prevalent area that failure can happen is at that 90-degree elbow coming off that tank. Okay, that's where your freezing point's are. And it could also fail just because of a bad fusion job.
Well, it could settle or anything else.
Right,
Sure.
exactly. Everything
The
settles.
90s are always the most successful
Yeah,
breaking.
they're horrible. I completely agree with that. If there's a failure there, you're talking between 100 or 60 and 100 PSI running in that line. Now you have check valves up at top, okay? And all the other houses on that line would have check valves. But once you have a leak at that line, you've created a vacuum. And that line's gonna be closest to the lake. And all those houses that are on that line still have pumps pumping, and they're opening up their check valves. That effluent is gonna hydraulically drill right towards that lake. Am I correct or incorrect?
Where you're talking where that 90 is,
Yep.
or snaps, there's 2 more check valves on my system before the main. So it won't do
On the
anything,
branch?
it won't do anything near the tank unless the tank pumps.
I'm not talking to that. Okay, you got 9 houses on it, 9 feeding into the branch.
Right?
Okay, your check valve up at your main.
No. Well, okay, all right.
You know,
I guess it's
where
probably
your
going
check
up.
valves would be in that branch. You can't keep on putting check valves because then your static.
Let's say the main goes right down this wall. Let's say the wall's the main. Okay? And I'm
Right?
a house. Between here and there, we drilled the wall
Mhm.
and we put a check valve.
Right?
And then near the table here, we put another ball valve and check valve
Right.
where the contractor has to hook onto it
Right.
and bring it to here. My tank is here and I have a ball valve in here. If this snaps here,
Mhm.
that check and that check are holding the rest of this. It wouldn't be 9 coming back, it'd be the whole damn lake or the highest point coming back. If you broke it off right at the saddle,
Mhm.
it would follow, it'd have the path of least resistance.
Correct.
It'd just be like a water main, but it'd stink.
Correct, and that's where I'm talking about. The way we're set up in a lot of areas, we have multiple houses in a line going up in elevation. Okay?
Right.
And,
It doesn't matter if it's not up
but,
elevation.
that branch is not the main going up. The laterals are going to that branch going up. And the question is, and
That-
this
that-
is something that Garish has to answer and Lyon Township has to answer, because it's different design than yours.
It's still the same design. Each house has a lateral that goes out to a main,
Correct.
whether it's this big or this big.
Oh, and I don't disagree, but all those houses that have laterals going to it, As soon as you have a break in that line, you create a back, all their check valves open up. Every check valve
No,
opens
they
up. Oh, yeah, they do.
No, they
You
don't.
got the weight of the water pulling on those check
A
valves.
check valve is a one-way, it's one-way street. When that pump kicks on, because you have 60 PSI here, and this thing pumps 61 PSI, it tips it over. When this thing shuts off, it's no different when it shuts off. It slams shut from that pressure. Whether you snap a pipe or you turn the pump off, it still can't come past here.
I'm talking in the elevation, okay?
Yeah.
Your lower elevation, how much weight would you have at the lower elevation?
Like I said, it might be 60 or 70. At the higher elevations, it's 15. But it doesn't matter. The check valve, the pump in the tank overrides system pressure, pushes it down, and it goes through. When that pump shuts off, it shuts the valve.
Okay.
And that valve,
Yeah.
and that valve.
Yeah.
So there is no suction if you break a line. If it's got a check valve, it doesn't matter, because when that pump turns off, it has zero pressure.
Oh, I don't disagree on that.
Okay?
What I'm saying is from the effluent draining out, you do create a vacuum. And that vacuum will affect those check valves.
Well, on the main line,
You'll suck them open.
on the main line, there's air releases that are engineered in. Those let air in and take air out.
Mary Ann can help.
But it has nothing to do
Mary
with
Ann.
the check valves with a pump coming on off you if you break a line. If you break the line, the water's gonna come out. Period.
Correct. And
But-
what I'm saying, other houses, not the one that had the broken line. I'm talking about.
The other houses are not affected.
No, but when they're pumping, they're putting fluid into the trunk.
No. If a pipe was broken, it didn't have a check valve, yes. But if it's check valve, no.
I'd like to suggest at this time, if anyone else has a question of Scott, Scott has said that he would gladly stay after the meeting and talk with anyone in the audience that had any additional questions. Thank you, Scott. He'll stick around. Does anyone from the public have a public comment that they wish to make at this time? We've had a lot of questions.
Of course I do. I'll use up my 3 minutes.
Yeah, come on up, Paul, so that you can get by the
Why, sure, I
speaker up
can do
there.
that. Oh, I got one melody, it takes me a minute to get here. This way? This way?
That's fine.
How about sideways?
There you go.
When you brought the police
There you go.
officer. Oh
We'll get your
my
good
goodness.
side.
Yeah, both of them are great. Do you know if the environmental impact study has been done yet by the engineering company as required by the USDA grant request?
Gary? Gary Bartow?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I'm here.
J- Repeat the question.
Yes, we have.
Do you know if the
The environmental,
go ahead,
yes, we have.
it's complete?
It is complete. It's been submitted to USDA for their review and approval. It's been sent to SHPO
Okay,
on the section 106. I think we're waiting to hear back from SHPO on their review comments.
okay, thank you. For GLUA, what's the status on the Eagle grant that was submitted?
Gary?
The Eagle grant, we had a pre-meeting a couple weeks ago. We haven't heard anything back from them yet regarding any principal forgiveness or loans, or I'm sorry, grants at this time. But the next step is to prepare the project plan, which will be required to be submitted on June 1st, 2022.
That's interesting. I talked with the Eagle grant manager, and he told me about a month ago that you had withdrawn your request.
Who did you speak to?
I'm not going to
That's
mention his
not
name here. I talked to the main office in West Branch, and the person who was actually reviewing that grant told me that information. But that's okay. I don't want to argue about it. As far as you're saying, it is active and out there.
Yes.
Are you talking USDA, or are you talking Clean Water SRF?
The USDA was the person I talked to. I also talked to Eagle, but that's a different study.
Yeah, USDA, we have not done the official application yet, but we are in the process of moving that forward.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it has not been withdrawn.
Okay. And the last thing was for Dave. Last month, you had talked about how you felt that we should accept this project and we should all join in. That we should accept the data that is being used by GLUA to justify this thing. It seemed to me, and I'm not that smart of a guy, that one of the things you could have asked of us is what our opinion was and our vote when the whole thing started. I know you went through a process, but it could have easily been put to a vote to the public also, and it wouldn't have come to this point now. Now, a month ago, I had already took my 3 minutes up, so I didn't say that, so I'll throw it out there. And thank you all very much.
We'll give you an extra minute if you need it.
No, that's
You're
all
always
for
welcome.
today. Other people are saying what I would say. Thanks.
Anyone else, excuse me. Anyone else have a comment that they'd like? Yes, come on up.
Dave Kniffy. I live at 2834G, Higgins Lake. Just a question dealing with the cost. Everybody keeps talking about the 130 million. That cost was based, from what I can tell, on 2018, published in 2019 as a cost. With a professional being in the industry and very aware of the costs of all the products. In fact, PVC and polyethylene just took a 5% increase, and that's not to the end user, that's coming from the mills. I estimate that cost, based on your figures, should be about 40 to 50% higher. Do you agree, disagree? I mean, I would assume that you would get a new quote. Gary?
Gary?
Yes, we took a look at the budgets about 6 months ago, prior to the public hearings in August. And we feel confident right now, based on what we've seen, that our cost opinion is right in the ballpark. Now again, if we push this out another 2 to 3 years, that could have an impact on project costs.
I totally do not understand that, because when you get a quote, you shouldn't be padding it by 40 to 50% when you present it to the residents and homeowners. I'm in the business, I sell the products, I know what the costs are.
I understand. We're trying to be realistic on where we are with the cost, with material costs that we have in both the treatment plant and with piping that we're proposing.
Are those costs based on today's cost or based on the 2018, 2019 costs?
I said we looked at the cost in August of 2021.
Okay.
The original cost of the project was estimated at 108 million, and that was revised to a cost of 130 million based on what we've seen the cost increase for both materials and labor.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Here's one final question.
Yeah, come on up. Your name, sir?
Clark Woody.
Hey, Clark, welcome.
Thank you. My final question is, has the board considered all residents bringing their current septic systems up to code? Instead of going through a whole sewer system, just make everybody meet code that's already exists and is a good deal for the community. Have you considered that? And the reason for rejecting it?
A septic system brought up to code still does the same thing a septic system does. The effluent goes out in the drain field, goes down, hits the water table, and ends up not only possibly contaminating your neighbor's drinking well, but it also has an effect on life. Whether it's new, 20 years old, 30 years old, it does the same thing.
Thank you for your
Mhm. Yes, sir, come on up. No, come on up, we need to have you up here. We'll give you a spotlight. Your name, sir?
Jack Lyons.
Yeah, Jack,
I'm
welcome.
just trying to understand again, I mean. I
Jack, if you
understand the
come up
septic
close
system-
to this so the engineers can hear you?
Yeah, the
There you
septic
go.
systems that are out there right now are putting nitrogen into the lake is the basis of it.
They're putting effluent. They're putting effluent into the groundwater, which ends up either contaminating your neighbor's well or it goes to the lake.
Yeah.
Whether it's new, old.
Yep, I understand that.
Yeah.
The solution, of course, is getting everything up, pulling it away, all that good stuff, but when it comes to the contamination of the lake and the mythology or the thought process of where the lines are gonna be drawn, how that's gonna work, has that been put out there yet? Do we know how you guys have come to the conclusion where the line's gonna be? Is it on the website so I can just go look at it?
It's been on there, yeah.
Okay, and that's why
Yeah.
I said that, because I wasn't sure if it was out there or not,
Okay.
so I'll look at that and try to understand it better, but. And again, when you're talking about the contamination of the lake via our sewer system and everything else, it has to be addressed eventually, I understand that, but what are we doing about the rest of it? The real, from what I've been told by biologists and people that know what's going on here, what are we doing about the 300-foot marker at the water level to actually help improve the quality of the water? What's happening there at the 300, I mean, there's brochures we have from Michigan on this, and like I said, talking to a biologist and saying, look, I understand there's sand and water flows differently in sand, but at 3/10 of a mile off the water, it's a tough sell to get me to understand that that's actually ending up in the lake. Whereas, again, and I haven't looked at the new lines, where I see a line over here and they're close, and that's not in it. It doesn't make any sense. They don't have much different soil. Maybe the first 2 feet, they got more muck because it's swampy. But after that, there's sand like there is everywhere around here. It's all sand. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it not sand all the way around this lake? Or is there clay, or is there?
Pretty much.
Okay, so,
I'm not, so.
yeah. But is there anything, is the commission, the county, or anything else, are they doing anything to work with the homeowners at the waterfront to help with it?
Well, I can tell you that Garrish Township has got one of our trustees looking at a fertilizer ordinance right now. We're starting to explore it. But I want you to understand that when we're here about a utility, the sewer. We're not, somebody fertilizing their lawn is not in our pew, it's not in our.
No, I understand that. It's more along the lines of trying to encourage people, your terminology, pay it forward. If you've got lakefront property, I would think you would have some kind of responsibility, be it morally or otherwise, to put in a reporting buffer. I can't sing the name right, Katie, but put that vegetation there that helps naturally filter and improve the water. I don't think there's anybody that would be on the waterfront that would be against that.
You're talking about,
Are
you talking about a green belt?
No, it's not really a green belt. I think it's a 10-foot buffer as we read it.
It's a green belt.
It is a green belt?
Yeah, I have brochures that were given to me by the Higgins Lake Foundation that we've passed out to lakefronters for several years now. The Higgins Lake Foundation has put on seminars for lakefront property owners, not only to address the issue of fertilizer, but also to address the shoreline, riprap and retaining your property, things like that. The foundation has been involved in that for several years with lakefronters. Now, we know that there are certain lakefronters that have come up here and clear cut everything from 100 feet back, and then they want a city lawn. So the answer is the townships are starting to look at that. We have one of our trustees that's investigating that now.
I think that would be helpful, and I understand the sewer system's probably gonna be coming whether we like it or not, but how it gets here and what it looks like.
No,
is-
that's not true, what you just
Really?
said. It's coming whether we want it or not. It all depends upon the grant money that's involved here.
Okay, so the grant money is a big piece.
It's a huge piece.
And I understand it
it's
is,
a
but what I've
huge
heard
piece.
all along is we're talking about all this grant money and the basis for how we're gonna get this done. It's almost sounding like the eggs coming before the chicken here on We don't have the grant money short of.
Well, when we identify how much grant money we'll get. and-
That'll help.
Well, then both townships will then send a letter out to every property owner identifying that your property is within the special assessment district, that we project that the sewer will cost this much money, we have this much grant money, and therefore your assessment will be this. That's what your assessment will be.
That's gonna all happen before this is over.
Exactly. You know, and
Well,
somebody.
and that's my misunderstanding.
we've got-
Mostly what I hear is
we've-
about, we're
we've got-
talking about the, you know, the grant money being, you know, if we get the grant money, but now we're saying, now it's being put to be a little different. Now we're saying, when we get the grant money, then we'll have a thing.
You'll
That's
have a
little
complete
different than
picture.
what I've heard in the past, at least.
You'll have a
That's the
complete
only
picture.
event.
No, I mean, some people have gone door to door in both townships and told residents, because they've called me and said that the sewer's gonna cost me $40,000. Okay, hear me. If it costs $40,000, I wouldn't vote for it. Hear me.
And I'm glad to hear that.
Well,
Quite frankly, I don't wanna vote for $40,000 either. I mean, I understand the cost, no matter what, if we're gonna take care of it, you're gonna have something's gotta change, I get that. It's
so
just-
that's why, you know, that's why we're after, you know, so supposedly the state has $2.3 billion for water and sewer. That's why we've got lobbyists, that's why that's why we're contacting our United States senators, our Congress people, telling them that, look, this is an unusual project, and then it's a brand-new sewer. All right, a lot of the grants that you see going out to communities, well, it's $3 million for a new pump, or it's $1.5 million for this, or $1.5 million. This is a brand new sewer project. Probably one of the largest new sewer projects being proposed in the entire country. I'm not bragging about that, but what I'm saying, that this is the reality of what it is, and that's what we're trying to impress upon the legislature to say, listen, you have to come and help us with grant dollars.
The best thing I've heard out of all this, since I've been involved in it, is the most positive or reassuring thing I heard you say just now is that we are in fact gonna wait for this to shuttle down to, here's the grant money before we say this is happening or not.
Exactly.
But that hasn't been, I haven't heard that before, so
Yeah.
that makes me feel much more comfortable with the whole process.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm, thank you.
Yeah, you got it. Anyone else have a comment they'd like to make? Yeah.
See if I can make it that far. Yeah, this is a little offline from the sewer project itself, but what I'd like to do is really encourage everyone to have their wells tested for nitrates, nitrites, and total ammonia, total nitrogen. The last thing we saw from the public health when Scott was here talking about it, I think he said about 10% of the wells tested along the, as I recall the slide, along the west side of the lower basin were above the limit for safe drinking. Nitrates are carcinogens, and we got them, and we know where they come from. So I guess I just want to recommend that everyone go into Raymond Laboratories. It's an EPA certified laboratory. They can make the test of your well, tell you how to gather the sample, give you the numbers back. And if you're above that limit, you better start living on bottled water. That's all.
Thanks, Brad. Anyone else? Tim, come on up.
Oh, quick question, I guess.
Sure.
At the last meeting, you said that you were a subcommittee or something, was working on the SAD limits. Who's on that committee?
Well, it's the GLUA.
So,
Oh,
okay, that was a subcommittee of a few people working on it. And then same thing on the exploring the vacant lot
Yep.
charge or whatever. it
We're
is.
still
That's
working on
everybody.
it.
And then we submitted 7 questions last time, and I know.
We're still working.
We're still working on those.
Yep.
But do you have any idea when to make a response to that?
When we formulate some answers, we want to make sure that it's correct coming to
Okay.
you. You asked some very insightful questions, very thoughtful questions, and we want to give you some very thoughtful answers.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
bet. By the way, you're buying lunch next time.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, Any board comments? Lisa?
Oh, I do.
No?
No.
Nope. David?
Well, I don't think I can go without saying anything, so I'm going to speak about something.
You have 3 minutes.
And I got 3 minutes. I just wanted to emphasize that we all talk about the solids and the effluent. This is all about the effluent. It's not about the solids. It's about stopping the effluent from going into our drinking wells and our lake. And it's not just nitrates. It's not just phosphorus. It's boron, it's laundry detergent, it's pharmaceuticals, it's personal care products. This has been the latest that has been studied. I don't know, Scott, I'll ask you, are you finding pharmaceuticals and personal care products?
We experience, when we pump tanks, we can tell if somebody is on medication that is altering the way a septic tank processes. We have seen some of that. As a whole, we have our monitoring wells tested for a multitude of things, but not so much household, products like that. But we have noticed septic tanks do react differently when people are on certain medications. Of course, I'm not privy to that. I'm not going to ask them, but
Yeah.
we have noticed systems.
Thanks. So the whole point is it's about the effluent that's going away from our house into our groundwater. That's what this is about. I know we talk about my septic works just fine. And I don't know how we know that. We know that because it doesn't back up. We know that because we went to the health department and checked for bacteria. So we say our septic works just fine. But the studies we've had, and you can go on to any of the sites to look up the studies that have been done that talks about the effluent that's in our lake. And it shows up in our littoral zone, in the shallows. That's where it shows up. When it goes over that ledge and goes down into the deep, we don't see it. It gets kind of gone around, and we have a phosphorus that gets bound with iron and falls to the bottom of the lake. And then when the oxygen levels deplete from the bottom of the lake, those phosphorus get released from those iron molecules and go back and feed the algae. This is how this process starts. So once the phosphorus gets in there, it can get bound together to the bottom, but then it gets released and then goes back and starts working. So the phosphorus really never leaves our lake. That's the phosphorus. But we do have a lot of degradation in the littoral zone, and that's what we're seeing from the septics. There was a study that I got involved in with a class that I'm taking at Michigan State right now, and it showed the changes in the way that littoral zone is when we have the season starts. So it shows that we're kind of in this, and of course, our lake has these levels of trophicness. Oligotroph is like the best. Then it's meso, then it's eutrophic, then it's hypereutrophic. And we fall in that ogle most of the time, but we start to bounce up into the meso, and then we bounce up into the eutroph, and then we go to the hyper during the season, and then it backs down. So why is it that we do the studies and it shows this stuff going up and up and up during the season and then it comes down? Is it because the ducks came? Is it because it rained? Maybe a little bit. It's because of human activities. And so we know there's an issue and we're really working on it. We were with the health department yesterday, and Steve King talked about the fact that he's really pushing and would love to have a septic code for Michigan, which has been going on for decades, but in townships. And he has some townships in his jurisdiction that do have septic codes. One of those codes is that if you don't have room for a field, if you can't meet the three requirements in Michigan, tank, field, number of bedrooms, that's our code. If you can't meet those, then you have to have a tank that's sealed, that when the liquid goes in, it gets pumped out, like every week. I don't know if that's a good thing at all, but Steve King talked about that kind of situation going forward with septics to try to stop the effluent from going into our drinking water and then we consuming the nitrates that are cancerous.
We have some of those pumping halls on some lakes that we don't service.
Why do you have pumping halls?
It's for the health department, for somebody to be able to occupy it, and it's bad. But that lake is trying to get sewer right now, but it takes time. But yeah, they put 2 tanks in, and when your 2,000 gallons is up, the alarm goes off and you call the septic hauler.
My final comment is that this has been quite the process, and it really takes a community to put this thing together. And there's been a lot of good feedback, and we've listened to what that is, and we're trying to hone this thing in to be exactly right for this community. So, thanks for everybody coming.
Bill?
I would just like to thank Scott for coming. You know, it's great to have you up here. We all did go down to see his system last summer, and it was quite impressive to see everything that was going on down there, and his knowledge of 29 years plus. I think he refuted a lot of people's attitudes towards certain things when it comes to freezing, when it comes to failures and so forth, that he just hasn't seen us. And so with his experience and their system down there, I don't think it's any different than what we're putting in ours, so I appreciate you coming up and giving your information.
Eric?
I don't have anything to add, except thanks, Scott, for being here. I wish we could take everyone to see the facility where Scott works. It answers even more questions, you know, drainage fields and all that, and how it functions. And the one thing I remember is, one of the things I remember is it didn't stink until you got inside the building. I mean, there was no downwind stench or any of that you would get with lagoon systems and otherwise. So thanks for being here, Scott.
My comment is I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn at 10:48 a.m.
I'll make that motion.
There's a motion, is there support?
Support.
All in favor, is there further board discussion on this? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, thank you. We're adjourned, and anybody has a question to Scott, grab him before he heads back downtown.
You want him to come back, don't throw him. That's all right.